Hi friends, welcome back. So Warren Buffett is selling, Cathie Wood is buying, and we may have some trouble brewing in our financial banking system. That's the subject of today's video. Thanks for joining back, and I'll give you the highlights of the market today. This is the big one though, I think. Warren Buffett is selling, or trimming I should say, however you want to say it, but is selling Bank of America. And he actually is a big holder of this stuff. So I guess it's the first time when he's selling since 2019. How much is he selling? So 33.9 million shares. So that ends up being about a billion and a half of this thing. And average selling price you can see here. Because I guess it looks like he sold it 3 different days, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So if you're kind of curious, how does Warren Buffett do stuff? They don't sell stuff all in one day. It's like 3 different days. And maybe what they do is, they sell a little bit, or well, not a little bit, so sell 10 million shares because they can't. It's hard to dump 33 million shares all in one day, and they probably spread it out 10 million per day, something like that. This is interesting because it's not just Bank of America that he's been selling. He's also been selling some Apple. So this was back in May. I'm recording this video in July, so what is May? Like a couple of months ago, May 4th. So it says Berkshire cuts Apple investment by 13%. I was trying to figure out exactly how much that was. I couldn't get a clear answer. I was just looking at articles. It was like 100 million shares. There was one estimate that was 21 billion worth of Apple stock. I guess it depends on which prices you're selling for, etc. But he is selling. So selling Bank of America, selling some Apple. Not all of it, just trimming some. Because these are still, solid companies, good balance sheets, etc. But it just shows you kind of what Warren Buffett's up to. He is buying Chubb. I think that is a insurance kind of company. I've never used Chubb myself, so if you guys have any comments on that, I just have never used it, so I don't know. But it says here, property and casualty insurer, and that's the 9th biggest holding for Berkshire Hathaway. I think his Geico is the other big insurance one he has. I don't know if he has other insurance, but this is the kind of companies that Warren Buffett likes. Now, insurance is an interesting one because basically they can just raise rates every year, or raise your premium, I guess you could call it. So in terms of like long-term investment, that's sort of why he likes those kind of things, right? You want companies that have pricing power. So if inflation goes up, they can raise right along with it. Take a look at the markets today. A lot of green, as you can see here. Now the phone companies were down. I think Verizon might have had their earnings, and maybe probably they said they weren't growing or something like that. I didn't look at those. I'm just saying you can kind of see it of like one thing drags everything down in a certain sector. Speaking of things that are down, it was interesting. We talked about this before, guys, with the whole CrowdStrike thing. They had that outage. It was a global outage, the largest in IT history. And their stock really tanked. I think it's down like 30% or something like that in the last couple of weeks. However, guess who is buying? Yes, Cathie Wood. So she's trying to catch, as we say, a falling knife. I'd like to hear your thoughts on this one. For those of you who are experienced using CrowdStrike, because I know some people in the community are in the IT field, because the question would be, does CrowdStrike have a big enough monopoly, and are their products or service so good that even this outage, this is just a temporary thing, right? So maybe the stock is down, time to buy. That's what Cathie would say. Or is this like a bigger problem to where people are too dependent on them, and maybe they're not as good, and maybe there's an alternative? That's the question. I am not an expert in CrowdStrike. I don't pretend to be an expert in CrowdStrike, but I do, track these kind of things and sort of share the news with you. And this is sort of why, we have a community to put stuff together, right? So I can talk about Bank of America, I can talk about Apple, but CrowdStrike, I just, I know what the stock is, but whether or not it's the greatest security protocol or whatever, I can't tell you that. But I can tell you that Cathie Wood thinks it's pretty good, and I guess it's coming back, as according to her, she put 12 million into this thing. I was looking at the valuation, and this kind of stood out to me, was their PE ratio seemed really high. At least according to Google, CrowdStrike, like their PE ratio was like 495, which is frankly ludicrous. Essentially, if you don't understand this stuff, this is the price of stock compared to how much a company earns, and then you can like compare that to either non-GAAP or GAAP. That depends on your accounting thing. And it's actually interesting because it came up with different numbers on here. And this is the grades that I use, so it's different than what Google says. So which numbers are correct. Honestly, I'm not sure. That's why I look at a bunch of different numbers. Sometimes Google is kind of funky with that, so maybe these are the more correct. But either way, it's still a bit high. So you have a PE non-GAAP, so that's a price earnings non-GAAP at 88. PE GAAP at 567. So again, it's a little bit different than 495. And also too, it depends how if the numbers are updated recently or not, right? Also, too, you have forward PE gap of 348, which is still very high. You can look at a non-gap PEG. So PEG is your price and the earnings growth, right? So essentially, the way you think about this is like, okay, I want my PEG to be around 1 if I can, and why is that? Is because you look at, say, your PE, and if it's 500 or whatever, are your earnings growing 500%? It's essentially how you think about it. Or if you want to look at a different measure, that's why you look at different ones like this. So if your PE is 88, then are your earnings growing, say, 90%? Like, you want your growth to be greater than your PE ratio there. Also, too, regarding the CrowdStrike thing, and so for me just looking at it, looks like CrowdStrike is overvalued, but who knows? Maybe they're growing like crazy. Who knows? That's why I said I'm not an expert in CrowdStrike. Don't pretend to be. That's what I like to hear from you guys in the field on that. Regarding the CrowdStrike thing, though, I guess a lot of companies are reeling from the outage still, and then Delta, they still have cancellations. I read some crazy number, like they canceled like 1,100 flights or something, and it might take them a few weeks, maybe a month or so to recover from this. It's like nuts. And I've heard this for a long time, that the airlines, that they have like really old systems, they need to update that. So if anyone has a solution for that, I'm sure there'll be money involved with that stuff. The problem with the airlines, they're also facing issues of like, fuel costs fluctuate, and then their staff want to get paid more, which is not unreasonable, right? Staff want to get paid more money to, keep up with the cost of inflation. I'm sure you guys know these things. And the other thing too, I want to talk about this when we ever talk about stuff of financial markets, be it what Warren Buffett doing, what Cathie Wood doing, what's going on with Delta, CrowdStrike, etc. Don't think that every country in the world is as wild and crazy as the USA, because we got like nuts stuff going on in USA. In Korea, this was actually big news here in our markets. I live in Busan, if you guys don't know, and you can find our vlog channel if you want to see what it's like living around here. But it's a good place. But we actually are arresting, I guess, Kakao. Now, for those of you who've been to Korea, you can give a shout out to Kakao. You'll know exactly what Kakao is. For those of you who haven't been to Korea, I'll explain. Kakao started out as a messaging service. Everybody uses it. So it's kind of like WhatsApp. And I don't know, I can't speak to what Americans are using these days, if everyone uses WhatsApp, or if there's another thing that people message each other on, if they're all using Snapchat or whatever. I just don't know what Americans are using. I'm going to guess WhatsApp. But in Korea, Kakao, it could be like 95% of, or maybe 100% of all Koreans have it. And then it expanded to, they have Kakao Pay, so it's like a payments service. They also have Kakao Taxi, so it's like an Uber service. And I'm sure I think they have a Kakao Financial. They have Webtoon, which is like a entertainment media service, etc. And they're so big. I think they have gaming too. I think there's a gaming component to Kakao. It's a big company, so I guess you could say it's kind of like Meta Facebook. But it's interesting here when the founder, I guess, is like manipulating stock. It's like, what the heck? So we'll see what happens with this. And I my personal opinion on this stuff. This is for anyone in the world. I don't think anyone is above the law. And if you do bring charges to like someone as powerful as this, again, it's like saying bringing Mark Zuckerberg to trial, and you arrest him, and you say you've been manipulating stock, or the equivalent would be in the USA is like, would Elon Musk ever get arrested and stuff like that? I have to say in Korea they're pretty strict on this kind of stuff, and so we'll see. I'm following this one. It's a big story over here, and we'll see what happens with that. Regarding also to get things out of the market, there has been a bit of a rotation because we had that Magnificent Seven run up, so that was the tech stocks. And it looks like people are going in the small cap. And you can see it in the numbers. This was reported in the Wall Street Journal. Had this great graph here. So your Apple, Microsoft, Google, Alphabet, right? Amazon, Meta, and Nvidia, they all went down. I guess Tesla's not included in this one. Yeah, that's the one missing. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so it used to be Magnificent Seven. Tesla's already dropped out. But they actually, to be fair to Tesla, they've been on a crazy run lately. But you can see here since, so what's this, today's, and you can create here, today's July 23rd. So at the last couple of weeks, these bigger tech stocks have been going down, and then people have been buying into the smaller cap stocks. So we'll see if that rotation continues. Plus, you have the Trump trade. But the basic gist of it, look at what Warren Buffett is doing with, buy low, sell high kind of stuff. And then you could Cathie Wood. She's always trying to buy low and I guess sell lower, but it's a joke. Actually, it's not. But that's the idea. So if you want to be more active in your money managing of your own, this is the kind of stuff that you're looking at. Okay, which sectors are hot, which are not. For other people too, if you wanted to stick with index investing, essentially you just buy it all, and so then you track the market as a whole. And so one year's one sectors are outperform or underperform, but you're gonna have it also. You'll kind of just weather it, right? You'll perform whatever market does. And then if you want to overweight a few things here or there, be my guest. But I'm just saying that's sort of the advantage of if you just do index, is that you'll capture all of this, right? The other thing too is sort of why I do the daily news with you guys. I want you to understand sort of what's going on in the whole economic environment, because we have like, what are big players in the market doing? What is Buffett doing? What is Cathie Wood doing, right? What is the overall market, like which sectors are doing okay? What are other countries up to? And what is the economy / workers doing? Sometimes the economy and workers are going to be separate than the market. Markets are actually anticipating future returns, future growth, et cetera, or not growth. And then I always like to point out what's actually happening, because sometimes there's a disconnect or a lag between the way the market kind of sees the reality, or whatever pumper / manipulator, say with the Cacao case, or Elon Musk, for example, and the Tesla, can also sort of alter ways people perceive the market, but may not necessarily reflect reality. So I'm showing you this, for example, Disneyland workers, right? They may go on strike. So they authorize the strike, and then how it is, I think the leaders then go in and negotiate. And then if there's no deal, they have the authorization in place to where they can say, okay, we're all going on strike. I read that, I want to say it was like the 1980s or something, because I just don't remember, that the Disneyland workers went on strike for like a couple weeks. So if you guys remember this, I'd be really interested in just hearing if you remember seeing this kind of stuff, because this, think about like how people would have to cancel their vacation plans if you're part of that kind of world. Regards to this kind of stuff, I think it matters, because essentially this is telling you that many just regular workers out there don't feel like they're getting paid enough, right? And they can't afford to live. And this is why inflation is hard to control for, because companies need to pay their workers more to keep up with, say, rents and your mortgages, et cetera. And then because they pay their workers more, they may have to raise prices, which you get this cycle. Prices get raised and be like, oh my god, am I getting paid enough, right? You guys get to see what I'm saying there. Also too, and this is regards to anything that we track, so we talk about Tesla on this channel, but like, I guess car dealerships are having a hard time getting people to buy cars. So if any communities bought a car recently in the last month or so, I'd be curious, or just say the TV advertisements in your neck of the woods or whatever, have they been offering incentives? So that's what this says here. This is just 2 hours ago. It says car dealers beef up incentives as U.S. inflation takes a bite out of demand. So people are just like, man, at these prices, I'm not buying. And so dealerships have to come up with ways to get you through the door. What are the numbers? It says here, average incentive packages offered on new vehicles rose 53% year over year. So that's actually pretty significant. Yeah, so I don't, it says cashback, lower interest rates, and price cuts, right? So I'll be curious if you are seeing that in your neck of the woods. I actually talk about this stuff in a prior video. I know I mentioned Trump specifically, but it's actually a history of understanding, kind of where we are today in terms of, opening a new business or paying your workers, et cetera. And I was talking about how Trump has promised you to bring back the factory jobs, but I argue that our economy is fundamentally different today than it was, yesterday or the years that he's trying to roll back to. So watch this video if you haven't already. I think you'll find it interesting. Now, I mentioned the banking and financial system. There's a odd situation with the banks. It's not going to be headlines because it's private. Literally, I'll read the headline. U.S. regulator privately finds weak risk management at half of large banks. So basically, there's this thing, I think it's called the comptroller. It's like the OCC, Office of the Comptroller. Yeah, so they call it CC. But they did a risk assessment of our biggest banks. 11 out of 22, they're saying they're insufficient or weak in their controlling of operational risk. So this matters because if there's something like really bad that happens, be it someone fat finger or something that happened, and actually that happens. I think it might have been like in England or something like that. It was like a Citibank, or I can't remember which bank. I just don't remember which bank. But like whatever, some trader hit the wrong button on something and sold a bazillion shares of stock and crashed it. Like, that's a fat finger thing. That actually happened. It was last year. I remember hearing about that. It was like a ridiculous one, because you'll hear about this every time. But so anyway, point being is, like, if some crazy crap happens, do the banks have sort of operating procedures like fail safes to protect any kind of meltdown? I guess 11 out of 22, not so great. Here's an example of different operational risks. So potential threats. Banks beyond loans going bad. Oh, beyond loans going bad. Okay, so other than loans going bad, which is obviously a threat. Market swings causing losses. Let's see here. Can be employee mistakes. That's the fat finger thing. Legal troubles, natural disasters, right? Any number of things, natural disaster, or technology snafus. Banks have to show regulators plans to manage such risks, right? And then I guess 11 out of 22 failed to show that if there's some crazy, swan event that happens, how well we would weather the storm. And regarding swan events, I feel like we're kind of there. President Biden, withdrew from the race. It was pretty late in the game, so my personal opinion on this thing is that he should never have ran for a second term. I was always under the impression, and it's not my imagination because I've showed it on the channel and I've looked it up before because I remember clearly, and then again I looked it up before, but he and his team were talking about, we just want to bring normalcy back to the country. I'll be a one-term president, and after that someone else will run, just to sort of change from the Trump trajectory. And then that kind of language changed, and Biden's like, well, the country's divided and things are going crazy, I'm going to stay. And then after that first debate, he's too old. That's all there is to say. And so now it looks like it's Harris and Kamala Harris, I guess. The donors are backing her. Other Democrats are getting in line, and I don't think there's going to be a primary or anything. So it looks like you got Harris, and we'll be talking about running mate. I'll do a separate video if I need to, but I generally don't do politics all day, every day. It's not something I do. I do markets, but you can't ignore this stuff because certainly it does matter. The one thing I think is interesting, we were talking about the Trump trade, whether or not Trump gets in, who knows? We'll have an election. Well, who knows? But they were promising the Trump people essentially lower regulations, higher tariffs, America first, that stuff. And that's why I mentioned the video. If you haven't seen it, please watch it. I recommend it. It's called Trump Mega Factory Jobs and Economy. And this was kind of a funny headline, though. Trump world is really mad Biden's no longer running because they spent a whole bunch of money and time attacking Biden, and now you got someone else. And for me, like this whole thing, like our election is so nuts because like this is real, guys. This is real. We have a political candidate and a former president who has NFTs. He had gold shoes before, selling gold shoes. I'm sure you guys saw that, but I'm just bringing up the NFT one. But if you want NFTs, you can get them. And also too, this is how crazy the USA is. And I don't know, actually maybe El Salvador would be similar. Doesn't the president of El Salvador support Bitcoin? I think it's El Salvador. And I don't know if other countries do. And you guys can let me know if there's like other world leaders that are like, oh my God, I love crypto. So Trump is going to be going to the Bitcoin 2024 convention in Nashville, Tennessee on July 25th to 27th. And he's going to be there with Cathie Wood. You guys can see right there. And I guess RFK has been there. So I know these kind of people are popular on the internet. I get that. But I think the average person is probably not in crypto. I know it pains the young kids out there on YouTube's that the average person or worker in a factory or the average person is just not into crypto. But your hopes and dreams are on Cathie Wood and Donald Trump and RFK are going to turn it around. And you guys can let me know. I think this one guy's the Rumble guy, I believe. And then there's Michael Saylor there. And then Snowden's there. But we'll see if it turns around. And honestly, guys, I don't know what XAPO Bank is. I'm going to call it Zappo. I don't know what it is. I have no idea. I'm going to guess it's a crypto bank. But that's the kind of candidates that we have is a crypto candidate. And then another candidate that just said, surprise, I'm the candidate. So that's you. Welcome to USA Politics. And it is a clown show. That's all I have to say. But it is what it is. So thanks for watching, everyone. And I'll catch you all in the next video.